The New York Giants are the talk of Indianapolis here at the NFL Combine. Maybe this is your chance now to talk about it. Next, here on the Big Blue Breakdown live. Hi again, everybody. Paul Dottino here live in Indianapolis. So glad you could join us on the Big Blue Breakdown. Look, there is no secret. Everybody in Indy is talking about the New York Football Giants. Yeah, they're coming off a very difficult season, one in which they only won 3 games. But right now, they are making headlines. Now, I get it. This draft doesn't have a lot of superstar quarterbacks up top. It doesn't have a lot of superstar wide receivers up top. And it doesn't have a ton of superstar pass rushers up top. Now, there are a few in each of those classes that some people would consider top run guys. But this draft, clearly from those here at the Combine, is extremely heavy in defensive line and running back and at tight end. Those are the 3 most fertile positions here at Indianapolis. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're here with you every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, to do the Big Blue Breakdown live, to take your phone calls, to take your video calls, and to discuss things on the chat on the right side of your screen. So let's go through the biggest headline of the day. First of all, most people here in Indianapolis, or at least those who I've talked to, do think the Giants are actually in better shape than a 3-win team usually would be. They love the fact that the Giants have some cap room. They love the fact that they have very little dead money over the next couple of years. And they like the fact that they have some very solid, coming into your prime type starting players. People cite Dexter Lawrence. They cite Brian Burns. They cite Kayvon Thibodeau. They cite Tyler Nubin. They talk about Tyrone Tracy. They talk about Malik Neighbors. They talk about Theo Johnson. There's quite a bit here for people to like that you don't usually see on a 3-win team. Now, having said all of that, there is no question that the Giants have an awful lot of work to do. We get that. Shane, the fact that he is going to get the best quarterback he can get his hands on that will win games in 2025. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that most of your rookie quarterbacks, and this is not exactly the highest rookie class, are going to get you a whole chunk of wins in their first season. So it's becoming more and more obvious to everybody here at Indianapolis what I've been telling you now for months, that the Giants will go get a veteran as a bridge, a short bridge or a long bridge, if you will. Didn't necessarily think that premier names would be available, but it sounds like now that premier names are. And then potentially take a rookie prospect at some point who might be able to train as a quarterback underneath the veteran that the Giants will start in 2025 that's going to help them win as many games as they possibly can. Well, you guys know what's happening, right? All the reports are out there. Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams is currently seeking a better deal from his current club. The Rams, their GM and their head coach, do not attend the Combine. And conveniently, they have decided that they will not take any press conferences this week. they probably don't want to get involved in any of the conversations that have already come out from all your national media that if the Rams and Matthew Stafford cannot come to terms on a renegotiated deal, they're going to have to look to move him. And the reports are that they've already told Stafford and his agent, Jimmy Sexton, one of the more powerful agents in the NFL, to go out and while we figure out what kind of number that we may be able to do to keep Matthew Stafford, which is what they really want to do, according to those who know, they're just not so sure that they can come up with the number to do it. And so they are looking for potential landing spots. The reports are, and again, word here around the combine, is that the Giants have already made contact with Stafford's representatives. And we will see where that goes. We're going to have to know in the next week and a half before the actual fiscal NFL year starts and free agency opens. And obviously, the draft is another month down the road, which is why, as I've also been telling you all along, that free agency and the draft will be the Giants' key to their quarterback puzzle. And the draft takes second seat. What happens in the next 2 weeks is going to give you an awful lot of breadcrumbs in leading to what the Giants are thinking at the NFL draft. All right, so that's where things stand right now. Most people here at the NFL Combine, and at least the most informed people who know Los Angeles and know what's going on in New York, seem to believe that there are two very serious contenders for Michael Stafford, the Giants and the Raiders. That seems to be the prevailing wisdom. Now, there was a report from, I believe it was ESPN, that the Pittsburgh Steelers would also like to get involved in making a pitch. But in talking to sources in Pittsburgh today, it is the belief out there that they are going to stick with either Russell Wilson, or Justin Fields, that they are less likely to make a bid for somebody outside the room. So if you're to believe what those in the know in Los Angeles are saying, that means it looks like we're talking about the Giants and the Raiders in a battle to get Matthew Stafford. Now, Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports a little while ago put out his latest mock draft. And in his mock draft, he's taking a leap of faith that the Giants will be the team that lands quarterback Matthew Stafford. He's got the trade as follows: Stafford and a sixth-round pick in 2026 to the Giants in exchange for the Giants' third-round pick this season, which would be number 65, and a conditional fourth-round pick in 2026 that could possibly move up to a third-rounder depending upon certain circumstances. So that's what we're talking about based on what Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports has decided would be the appropriate compensation. Now, he then goes on to say that Las Vegas is going to trade up with Tennessee to get the number one pick in the NFL draft, and they will go for Shedeur Sanders. He then has Cleveland taking Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner, quarterback and wide receiver. Now, the interesting part about that is that there is an overwhelming opinion here at the Combine that the Cleveland Browns absolutely positively have to take a quarterback with that second pick. Trapasso instead is opting for Hunter. At number 3, Trapasso says the Giants will then take pass rusher out of Penn State, Abdul Carter. So think about this, folks. If his scenario comes to pass, the Giants wind up with Matthew Stafford and Abdul Carter over the course of the next month and a half. And it will not have cost them either a first or second round draft choice in this year's draft. And as you may know, the Giants have the number 34 overall pick in this year's draft. That would be at the penthouse of the second round. So it looks to me like the way Trapasso has designed it, and again, this is all his speculation based on what he has gleaned. Uh, it's a pretty nice situation to be in if you're the Giants. Now, of course, to make this all happen, Stafford is going to have to reach a renegotiation on his deal with the team that is going to trade for him. Stafford is 37 years old. Talking to Greg Cosell of NFL Films just the other day, he flat out said that, and I'm telling you, he said it with conviction, Matt Stafford was the best quarterback in the NFC during this past season. Yes, that is what he said. The best quarterback in the NFC this past season. And that does include Jalen Hurts. It does include Sam Darnold. That does include Jaden Daniels. Greg Cosell is a film guru, and he has studied things very carefully. I've also talked to a source in Los Angeles who also insisted to me that Matthew Stafford has plenty of gas left in his tank. He plans on playing a few more years and probably until somebody takes a football away from him, and he is playing at a very high level. Stafford's current contract is through 25 and 26. Pays him $33 million in 25, $37 million in 26. That is based on the base, the option, and the roster bonus that he would be due in each one of those 2 years. The reports out of Los Angeles seem to indicate that Stafford would like to be paid amongst the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. So that means if you're going to renegotiate a deal with Matt Stafford, whatever team winds up landing him, you're looking at the 10th highest paid average quarterback by salary in the league, Kyler Murray, at just over $46 million a year. Ninth is Jalen Hurts at $51 million a year. So you want to split the difference and go 48, 49? We'll see. But that's the kind of number that you're going to have to get up to, it appears, for Stafford to be willing to do a redo with a team that may want to trade for him. If you're the Giants, you certainly have the cap room to do it. You could do a deal much like you did with Daniel Jones, where you could lock him in as a starter for probably, I don't know, certainly the first 2 years of the deal, 25 and 26, and potentially 27, or for that matter, much like the Giants did with Daniel Jones this season, have an escape hatch written into that contract, which isn't going to cost you dead money if you have to use it. We know that. But you could probably put an escape hatch in for the 27 season or the 28 season for that matter. And then obviously as part of this deal to lower the average cap hit, you'll put, I don't know, 2 voidable years maybe on the back end of his deal. So probably what will turn into a 2-year deal with the potential for 3 with 2 voidable years on the back end. So probably a full renegotiation, which winds up resulting in a brand new 5-year contract. You could always add a 3rd voidable year if you wanted to, make it 3 voidables, and then lower the cap hit across the board. But that then is going to give you a little bit of sticky dead money down the road. Now, the good news is for a team that's going to want to do this, the salary cap has gone up in each of the past two seasons, last season and this season. But not only has it gone up, it has gone up more than all of the estimates and the anticipated numbers that we were expecting to see. The economic growth and the revenue growth of the National Football League is as strong as ever and continues to exceed the projections. Well, then that means as you go forward down the road, the old credit card philosophy of kicking the can down the road a few years, well, the pain won't be quite as bad when you do this because the cap is not only expected to continue to increase each year, but even perhaps by more than the current estimates. And that just devalues the cap hit that you may have to take in voidable years down the road on a deal such as the one that we might be talking about. Interesting part, of course, is, and most people also believe, that within the next 3 years, could be two, but some people believe it's going to be three, you'll wind up seeing an 18th game in the regular season. 18 regular season games and 2 preseason games. That is going to also add more revenue to the pot for the National Football League and give another boost and jump to the salary cap. But that right now is not in play. That's just something that keeps lurking in the background. The other thing that's going to also lurk in the background are the opportunities to add more television partners to the mix. We know Netflix already had their Christmas games. We know about, Peacock and these other streaming services that have started to splinter some games off. And let's face it, every time that happens, that's more revenue for the NFL, and that helps notch up the salary cap a little bit more. And we have heard just over the last week that the people at Netflix have said they would not object to the possibility of maybe buying some more games in the very near future if the NFL is willing to give them some more kickoffs. Well, Netflix is going to pay for those games. What do you think the NFL is going to say? Probably, thank you very much. We'll be glad to take your cash. So you're looking at two additional revenue streams, whether it be the max out to 18 regular season games or the potential of more streams that will add to the coffers for the NFL as they continue to move forward and raise the salary cap. This is probably a good time as any, as good a time as any, if you're going to do a deal such as the one that we were just contemplating with a veteran player that you're going to kick the can down the road a little bit, stick on those void years on the back end, and that dead money is going to wind up being a smaller percentage of your salary cap because of the potentially larger and larger and larger revenue streams. So I hope that explains to you folks a little bit as to why the Giants would, be like this. I'm going to get to the chats in just a second, but I know a lot of you are trying to chime in already, but I wanted to get to this right off the top because this is the huge headline out here. Everybody in Indianapolis is talking about what's going to happen to Matthew Stafford, and the Giants are on everybody's lips. Now, the other potential here coming out of the people in Los Angeles is that you also know Cooper Kupp, 32-year-old wide receiver, and, who has had a heck of a resume over the first 7 years of his career. He has a contract for 25 and 26, supposed to make $20 million in each of those years. He's looking elsewhere because the Rams have already told him that he should be looking to try to get a deal elsewhere because they would like to try to trade him. If they cannot find a suitor for Cooper Kupp, they're going to be forced to release him and make him an unrestricted street free agent. Well, I don't think anybody really needs to contemplate for too many seconds to figure out that Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp have had an outstanding relationship over the last handful of years and been an incredibly productive passing combination. So I just throw that out to you that it certainly seems logical that wherever Matthew Stafford lands, Cooper Kupp is probably going to be at least interested, at the very least, in perhaps rejoining his buddy. But that again, that could be any team. It could be the Raiders. Who knows? Again, wherever Stafford goes, you would think that Kupp might just shadow him. And of course, if it was done in a trade, you would want to rework his deal. If he was not done in a trade and he was picked up as a street free agent, you would be able to negotiate with him from scratch. So, folks, I hope we have explained during the first 20 minutes or so of this show what the big time scuttlebutt here is at the Combine. New York Giants are the talk of Indianapolis. And it's pretty wild when you think about it. So that's where we're at. Let me see what I can do about getting to some of your chats. Aiden Fink says, hope all is well. And indeed, sure is, Aiden. Actually, it poured rain here earlier this morning. It was really loud on the roof of the convention center where we were talking to the draft prospects. And kind of scary, to be honest. Anyway, you're saying cross Derek Carr off a potential list of quarterbacks the Giants could trade for as the Saints GM indicated Carr will be back. Well, you know what? Talking to the people here, they're still not 100% sure that Carr is going to stay. They're leaning toward it. I saw that comment that was made the other day. Earlier in the offseason, the talk was that Carr was probably on his way out. Then Kellen Moore was named the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. And so, wow, all of a sudden, it was like Moore says he likes Carr, wants to work with him. Maybe he's going to stay. There have been some comments made by the Saints along those lines. The people in Indy seem to think that's going to be the case, but nobody is ruling Carr out of the marketplace. So we will see. I don't think, as it stands now, based on what people believe, that his availability, which is questionable, certainly doubtful, how about that? Doubtful, isn't going to impact the suitors who want to go after Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins or Matt Stafford, should all three of those guys, veterans with substantial resumes, be made available to other teams around the league. The Magic Cast, Papa and Biz, how are you, fellas? Good to talk to you. 60 plus degrees weather out here. Again, I could have done without the rain this morning, but the temperature has been marvelous. Probably the second most pleasant temperature week that I have had at the Combine since I started coming about 10 years ago. Christine says, good evening. Glad to talk to you, Christine. I'm so glad because I know that you've had some health issues recently and haven't always been able to join us. And so it is really, really nice to have you back. John Morano says hello. Big hi to you, John. There we go. See, I'm not using my regular home desktop computer. We're kind of in a makeshift situation. You see, I'm in the hotel room today. I was going to do this from the convention center where everything has been set up for the Combine. The acoustics not great. Couldn't find electricity in a proper area where we were trying to set up. So we decided, you know what? We're just going to have to go to the hotel room and do it from here. Besides, if I get a little excited and a little animated and I get a little loud, chances are I won't bother anybody because I'm all alone in my room. Iman Perry says, salute. There you go, my man. Absolutely. Always putting in the work. And by the way, I didn't do this. I know you guys sometimes like to see your names up there too. So I don't want to, I don't want to jip you guys out of that. You get an opportunity to see your name up there on the screen. We definitely want to put you up there. There you go, John. There's Iman Perry's absolutely putting in the work. My goodness. Today, Iman, let me give you an example of what happened today. Today, players, the prospects, they go through medical checks before they come into the convention center. And they go into a very large room. And around the perimeter of the room, there are podiums set up. And players come in, I don't know, 10 at a time. And each guy gets a podium around the perimeter of the square room. And then all the writers huddle in front of each of the podiums of the guys they want to talk to. And it's just an open press conference for each guy. And they're going on simultaneously. So it can be very difficult. If there are certain guys that you want to talk to or you want to listen to, you got to make sure that you know who's in that group of 10 guys at that moment and then kind of pick and choose. You know, I'm going to stay with this guy for like 3 minutes. Then I'm going to go to this guy for 4 minutes. Then I want to go to that guy for 5 minutes. And maybe you ask a question or two, or maybe you don't, you just listen. But it's a frenzy. It's an absolute feeding frenzy. So here's what we did today. The first three groups were defensive linemen and edge rushers. Then the second three groups were linebackers, okay, and edge rushers. Then after that, we had, let's see here, who did we have after that? We had edge rushers, defensive linemen. We had, three more edge rusher, defensive lineman groups. So that went on till a little after 12 o'clock. So we had over 4 hours, okay? We had over 4 hours to quiz and discuss and talk to all of these prospects as they were getting done with their medical checks and were presented to the media. Now, each of these groups, okay, the group of 10, so to speak, they're only out there for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then they clear them all out. And then you have to wait for the next group of 10 or 12 to come onto the podiums. And then you do all your questions and so forth and so on. Then they clear them out. And then the next group comes out. So today we had 3, 6, 9. We had 9 different groups today. All right. And I'll be very glad to talk about any of these folks, or at least the folks that I was able. I wrote down notes on every single player that I was able to either question or listen in on. I try to be as selective as possible to pick guys who just interested me for one reason or another. And I would be very glad to share some of that stuff with you as we continue to go through tonight's program. I'd like to be with you guys for at least an hour. If we do an hour and a half, if it's warranted, we'll go an hour and a half. If you guys still want me to do longer, we'll see if we can do longer. I will tell you, again, this is just a matter of getting some procedure stuff out of the way. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, that's when we start tomorrow's prospect interviews. We have defensive backs, followed by tight ends, followed by defensive backs again. And that's what we're going to have on Thursday. No one has worked out on the field as of yet. So you understand what we're talking about. I'm just trying to set the table for you guys so you know exactly what's going on out here. And then if you have questions, I'll be glad, or comments, I'll be glad to go through them with you. But I want you to understand exactly what has happened to this point so that we don't have to keep repeating something that may or may not have relevance based on the fact that it hasn't occurred. Starting tomorrow, between 3 and 8:30 in the afternoon, there'll be on the field workouts for the defensive linemen and the linebackers. And then on Friday, between 3 and 9 o'clock, it's the defensive backs and the tight ends. The quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs will work out on the field in Lucas Oil Stadium, home of the Indianapolis Colts, on Saturday from 1 to 8:30 p.m. And then on Sunday from 1 to 4:30 p.m., all of the offensive linemen will be working out. Now, for you folks who want to follow along with that stuff, NFL Network is doing a sensational job of covering this stuff all week, and they will have an extensive amount of coverage of all of the workouts in the stadium. I plan on going into the stadium myself over the course of the next couple of days to visit and watch a few things on my own as well. But obviously, I've got to do Big Blue Kickoff Live on Giants.com during the day. I've been doing that with John Schmelk. And then we have to do a bunch of taped interviews and pods that we're using on the Giants' own website, as well as a bunch of audio interviews too that we've done. And it's nonstop busy here. In all honesty, it's kind of like a 2-minute drill, but there are no timeouts. It's a running clock. And again, you don't have any timeouts. And it's just go, 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 go. And everything keeps hitting you in the face, one thing after another. It is a frenzied pace. Most people think that it's exactly the kind of thing that I would be fit for. And I suppose in some ways I am. But anyway, that gives you a better picture of what exactly is going on out here today. All right, let's see what we have here. Orlando Mendoza. Hey, Paul, hope you're having a great day. Yes, Orlando, I certainly did have a good day. I'm hoping it sounds like there's no more rain in the forecast. So if I do get a chance to get out tomorrow after everything is done and we at least have a little bit of a respite, we'll see. But it poured this morning, but that's why we were interviewing the prospects, so it didn't matter. Let's see. What do you think the percentage is that Matthew Stafford is the Giants quarterback next year? Well, Orlando, all I'm going to say is this. If you were here in Indianapolis with me right now on the ground at the combine, I'm not going to put a number on it for you, but you would say, based on everybody's murmuring, if you will, that the percentage is going to be very high. It seems to be very, very strong. You know, the feeling around the press room and around the hallways of the hotels and of the convention center and in the restaurants. The talk of the town is that, you know, the Rams probably are not going to be able to get a new deal done with Stafford, and the Giants are the team that is most likely going to land him in a deal. And I think a lot of people started to kind of pick up steam on this when Joe Schoen himself said at the podium on Tuesday morning that as far as he's concerned in terms of getting a quarterback, he is going to get one. And the target is a guy who is going to win them the most games in the 2025 season. Now, that's as far as he's going with this. But do the calculations. If you're going to pick a quarterback who's going to get you the most wins this upcoming season, chances are that guy is not going to be a rookie. And chances are he's going to be a really, really good veteran who's got some mileage left on his tires. You can understand how the dots are connecting here. And it was since that presser that the talk about Stafford and the Giants really started to heat up. It was almost like someone had pushed the button on the microwave. And that's where it's at right now, Orlando. But again, I will tell you, the person I spoke with who knows the Rams in and out said to me, and I'm simply going off of what they told me based on their information in LA, is that the Rams really do appreciate Matt Stafford. He likes it there. Coach McVay is very happy with him. They know that they came oh so close to going to the Super Bowl again with him. Remember, they had gone there once before and got a ring. And then this year, very difficult game against the Philadelphia Eagles in very messy weather. And it came awfully close to happening. So they know what he is, and they want him back. But there doesn't seem to be enough room in their financial discussions. And that's the glitch here. You know, um, the talk around here as well, to some much lesser degree, is that Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns, who has already come out publicly in a video and in a letter saying that he wants to be traded out of Cleveland, and it has nothing to do with money. It's because he wants a better chance to win. And he doesn't think that the Browns right now are in a position to contend. And he wants to get somewhere where he has a chance to win while he is still in his prime. Most of the time, when guys, are in an impasse in terms of what they're thinking and what the team is thinking, it has to do with money. Myles Garrett's thing is not about money. He just doesn't believe that the Browns are in a position to contend anytime soon. So that's why he wants out. The difference here is that there are real numbers and George Washington's. you know, there are dollars to be talked about, and it's quite clear that the Rams are not real interested in moving up a whole lot on their number. And Matthew Stafford is not real interested in coming down a whole lot. So unless they can find a middle ground, which both profess that they'd like to do, but have doubts about, we're looking at a guy who's going to be on the move. Orlando, I hope I have explained that as thoroughly as I possibly can. Christine says, loved your thoughts on BBKL today on the size of kickers to D linemen. For those of you who did not watch Big Blue Kickoff Live earlier today, we're doing a show every day here from the Combine during lunchtime, as we always do BBKL. John Schmelk had asked me, he said, we were just kind of kibitzing about the day's events. And, rather than get into the details of football right away, he just said, what is something that caught your fancy and struck you about, talking to these players today? And in all honesty, it was just the sight of a row of kickers who were lined up in one corner of the room. They didn't even have podiums, okay? They were down on the ground with small tables. They didn't even have podiums. And there was a slew of about 10 kickers lined up in one corner of the room. And then as you looked past that line of kickers, the podium started along that wall of defensive linemen. Some of these linemen are 260, right? Some of them are 320 and 330. And some of them are 6'4". And it just really looked funny as can be. It almost looked like the kickers were like the ball boys who, hand the balls to the referee, when the ball gets wet, during a rain game and the referee's throwing the ball out or he's drying it off. And then you see the ball boy with the big X on his chest on the sideline and he's hustling the new ball into the referee. It almost looked like a line of NFL ball boys, not kickers, but NFL ball boys next to these behemoths of defensive linemen. It was just a funny sight to see. And that was just something that I should have taken a picture of it, but I didn't. And I'm sorry, because you folks would get a better appreciation for just how funny it looked. It had to make you chuckle. None of these kickers looked like they belonged in a uniform. Anyway, that's the story. So, Christine, thanks for allowing me to come back and repeat it here tonight on the program. But that's just something that just struck me as being funny. One of the observations that you get from being here live at the Combine in Indianapolis. The Big Moo says, hey, Paul, have you been to St. Elmo's yet for a nice steak? As a matter of fact, Big Moo, I did not get there yet this week. I have been busy. At some point in time, I may get over there. Reservations are tough to come by at this point because it's the week of the NFL Combine and everybody and anybody in the league is here. And consequently, you got to pull some strings. Now, I got some strings I can pull, but I don't necessarily want to pull them if I don't have to. And certainly, if I know I don't have like 2.5 hours to sit down and kick my feet up and enjoy a meal, I probably could have done that tonight. But I was committed to doing this show. And so I definitely wanted to be here with you guys and share all of these observations with you from Indianapolis. So the St. Elmo steak is going to have to do without me, at least tonight. We'll see if maybe later on in the week I can get to it. Christine says she loves it. Well, I'm not sure exactly which of the stories I've told you so far were the ones that tickled your fancy, but I'm glad. Scott Young says, hello, Paul. Hope you're having a great time. Looking forward to awesome free agency. Let's go, Giants. Well, there you go, Scott. Again, it's free agency / draft market. That's the key here, right? That's the key. Free agency / draft market. I mean, to be frank with you, since even before the season was over, I've been looking forward to that part of the offseason much more than the draft. I've said this to you guys many, many times already because the impact on the Giants in 2025 that the free agent / trade market is going to have, it will be significant. So Scott says, Paul, I'm a go for Stafford, but do not by any circumstances want to give up our third pick in this year's draft. Well, Scott, there's a rumor that came out, and I don't know where it was coming out of. I think it was coming out of California, but the people who I know who are well placed with their sources in the Ram organization, they couldn't tell me where the rumor came from either. But there was a rumor out there that seems to be unsubstantiated, but who knows, that the Rams wanted a first round draft pick in this year's draft for Stafford. They know that's not going to happen from what my source told me. They know that's not going to happen. And everybody around the league knows that that's not going to happen, especially considering that you're going to have to do a deal and then negotiate, or actually, it's going to be in reverse. You're going to have to renegotiate Stafford's contract to see if you can come to good numbers with him. Then you make the backhanded deal. It's the same thing the Giants did last year. If you remember, the Carolina Panthers, there was some talk amongst NFL circles that Brian Burns, their sensational edge rusher, might be available for trade. And as we saw in Hard Knocks, Joe Schoen at the Senior Bowl kind of brought it up to his buddy in Carolina and said, hey, what's this about Brian Burns, right? So eventually what happened at the Combine, again, through Hard Knocks, we saw this. Joe Schoen checked with his guys, Brian Dable, Shane Bowen, etc. Do we want to make a pitch for Brian Burns? The answer was yes. Okay, so we're in on Brian Burns. Now you got to call back the Carolina Panthers and say, hey, if you're trading Burns, which you've kind of indicated you'd like to do, you've got to off that contract. All right, we need to talk to him first. We need to see what we can do about redoing his deal and giving him an extension, because that's the only way we're going to make a deal for him. We're not trading draft capital for a guy who we're not going to be able to keep. And so Carolina says, okay, go ahead. Talk to Brian Burns, talk to his agent, have that conversation. And then if you guys can come to terms on a new contract, give us a call back and we'll try to figure out if we could do some kind of swap with draft picks and see if we can actually make a trade, because, hey, that's on you. If you guys can come to a good long-term deal with him, God bless you, because we're not going to do it. That's basically what's happened with the Rams. Really, that it's the same situation. So, it's a two-pronged attack to get him. You got to talk to Stafford's people, and then you've got to make a deal with the Rams. So there's an expense involved here aside from the draft capital you're going to have to deal to Los Angeles. That's why nobody believes that they're going to get a first round pick for him. I might add that several years ago, the Atlanta Falcons had a 37-year-old starting quarterback who was very well regarded named Matt Ryan. You guys know he took the Falcons to a Super Bowl. They didn't win, upset by the Patriots. And I say upset because it was a rally by Tom Brady and company that beat them. But the Falcons traded their very high quality starting 37-year-old quarterback straight up to the Indianapolis Colts for a third round pick. So I suspect that if that was the going rate for a Matt Ryan, you're certainly not going to get a first rounder for a Matt Stafford. The Focus says, hello, Paul. Why is Kyle McCord not valued highly in this draft? I kind of like the kid. Well, here's what I could tell you about McCord. And we've had conversations about the whole group of quarterbacks many times throughout the walls of the convention center these first couple of days. And the word on McCord is that he will either A, be a solid NFL backup, or B, be a fringe starter. That's kind of where he lies, based on the reaction and the conversations that I've had with people here at the Combine. He certainly has some traits to like, but he's much lower on the shelf than the Wards and the Sanders and the Darts and the Milrows. That's just the way it is. It does seem like, remember now, Sanders is not throwing at the Combine. Ward, it does not appear, is going to throw either. I don't know if that was actually confirmed yet or not. You folks may have read that because I've been running around like a chicken without a head. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet that Ward is not going to throw either. The consensus, and let me get this out of the way right now for you, the Focus. The consensus in Indianapolis here at the Combine is that Cam Ward is the more talented quarterback of the top two, and it's not close. He is the most talented quarterback in this draft. Sanders is absolutely a step down. Ward has much more upside, but if you're looking more for some consistency, and if you're not so much concerned with being a star, most people seem to think that Sanders might be the safer pick, but he just does not have the overall skill set or the upside that Cam Ward has. And when you're taking somebody potentially in the top 5, there has to be a potential diamond in that piece of coal. You don't take a piece of coal at the top of the draft. You take one that has a diamond somewhere inside of it. So that's why the consensus here is clearly that Cam Ward is the top-rated quarterback on the board. You might run into a person here or there, and I have run into a couple of them that say they would like to have Sanders as the number one guy. They love his poise. They love his accuracy. Okay? They love the fact that he doesn't take as many chances. But Ward has that explosiveness, the tremendous advantage over Sanders in just pure all-around skill set. And that's why it's become more and more apparent. And it was becoming apparent over the last week or two anyway, even when I was back in New Jersey. But from the minute that I landed here in Indy and I got to the convention center, it's like it's a deluge of people who are like, okay, no, there's no doubt. Ward is 1, Sanders is 2. Just the way it is. Anyway, Christine, please share Paul on your list. I'm not sure, Christine, exactly what it is that you want to know. If you can maybe get back to me, I'll try to answer that. Again, we have nobody right now who's on a phone call or on a video call, and I would be very glad to take one if you guys want to chime in. Will Talk Entertainment says, "Hey, Paul, I'm not." Again, I don't understand. Oh, here we go. Will Talk has another message. I'm not a fan of them trying to acquire Stafford. I want a quarterback that could do the same thing that Eli Manning did in the championship game against the 49ers. That to me is Sanders. Well, I just went through what the feeling is here in Indianapolis. You certainly are entitled to feel as you feel. Again, Will Talk, I've tried to make this clear to everybody. This is not an exact science. Nobody is right or wrong. The only thing that's accurate is hindsight. Hindsight will always be correct. There's no mistakes in hindsight. But going in, the overwhelming opinion here at the Combine is that Ward is the much more talented player. Okay. Will adds about Sanders. He's accurate, tough, can drop the ball in the bucket when it counts. Plus, he threw for 4,000 yards behind a bad offensive line. Again, absolutely understand. Sanders is going to have his fans and he's going to have his backers. So you're not the lone wolf on the island. There is a smaller group that feels as you do. So you're not alone. And only time will tell who turns out to have the better pro career. There are those people also. There is a small segment that I've come across here at the Combine who believe that scheme fit would be a reason that you might potentially, even those who say Ward is the number one quarterback, I've run into, let's see, one, two, three people, and I've bumped into a ton in the last 2 days. But I ran into three different people who said, yeah, Ward is the number one quarterback in this draft, but based on your scheme fit, I could see somebody taking Sanders ahead of Ward. And that's always part of the equation, too. John Nichols says they could get Jameis Winston cheap as a bridge quarterback. He's a free agent. Well, John, I don't disagree with the statement. You could get him as a cheap bridge quarterback because he is a free agent. Those things are all true. But you get what you pay for. And that's about as honest as I can be. Right? The only quarterback in NFL history, 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in the same season. And his entire career has been littered with turnovers. So I haven't heard Jameis Winston's name come up once in any quarterback conversation during the first 2 days that I've been here in Indianapolis. No one has mentioned him being attached to any team. So take that for what it's worth. It doesn't mean that he won't land somewhere. It doesn't mean that nobody wants him. But right now, he is certainly not the topic of conversation. And I don't get the impression that he's going to have a lot of people in hot pursuit. Imam Perry says, I saw a stat that said the Falcons and Panthers both 0-2 in the Super Bowl and both lost to the same two teams, Patriots and Broncos. I don't. You'll see and read a lot of things on the internet, Iman. That's all I've got to say. Iman Perry says, no, he's not throwing either. I guess you must have read the confirmation that Ward is not throwing. That is what I had heard earlier today. but that was like 95%. It was not actually in stone at the time when that conversation had come up. Isaac Moore says, hi, Paul. Hi, chat. Hope all is well. Do you think the Giants will make a real push for Stafford due to the trade implications, if not cut, and the money? I don't think the Giants are close to winning. Isaac, again, it's quite clear that the predominant opinion here in Indy is that the Giants are the strongest contender to make the push for Stafford, and they will do what it takes to get him. And as far as you don't think the Giants are close to winning, I will tell you there are some very respected people out here who know that the Giants have work to do, but think they are a lot closer to winning than, let's just say, most of the scribes do in New York. And certainly, I understand a great deal of the frustrated fan base doesn't necessarily think that winning is around the corner either. And that's fair given the emotions that have enveloped everybody for most of the past decade. But Isaac, I am telling you, there are very respected people out here at the combine. We're talking about scouts. We're talking about front office people. We're talking about coaches, just some of the most intelligent football people on the planet. And there's a segment of people here who actually think the Giants are a team to watch in terms of every year, as I have been told to my face now a number of times, and we all know this already, but it's been expressed again. Every year, there's a small group of teams that nobody in the world thinks has a chance to do anything because they haven't performed well recently and they've been on the outside looking in. And then suddenly they have a really good offseason. And because the NFL is so topsy turvy, they wind up being the surprise of the year, much like the Washington Commanders. Well, the few people who seem to share this feeling that I've run into about the Giants feel that if they get a star quarterback as for example, a Matthew Stafford, that is a significant linchpin in the Giants perhaps being a team that could do what the Washington Commanders just did in 2024. Christine says, sorry, Paul, the players you were able to speak to today in Indy. Oh, wow. Let's see. How many people did I talk to today? I talked to 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I wound up talking to 19 different players today. I won't go through all of them, but based on edge rushers and linebackers, if there is somebody that you guys want to hear a little bit about, if they're on my list, I'll be very glad to share my notes for those players or one player if you only have one that I took down while I was listening to their press briefing. Thank you, Christine. Timothy Minays. Hi, Paul. Do you think the Giants should trade for Jair Alexander? Yeah, he's now up on the block. No, I don't. I think if the Giants are going to make a big splash trade, I think the one that is currently being talked about at the combine is the one that makes the most sense. The Giants will still have some money to partake in free agency, and they will also still have, if Chris Trapasso's suggested trade comes through, they will also have most of their draft picks, including their first and second rounders this year. And remember, Timothy, by the way, we still don't have the NFL's list of compensatory picks for the April draft. Now, based on educated guesses of the free agent equation that is used for compensatory picks, the Giants, by most accounts, are expected to get either a fourth rounder or a third rounder added to their pot basically because of the overlap in free agents between who they lost and who they signed. Xavier McKinney was the overlap in terms of the contract he signed with the Green Bay Packers. So it looks as though no one knows the exact formula that the NFL uses. They keep it a secret on purpose. But it looks as though, based on educated guesses, there is a chance the Giants will get a compensatory pick down at the bottom of the third round. It could easily be a fourth, but there is a lot of speculation. It could be a third. Well, think about it. If it's a third, now, yes, it's going to be at the bottom of the third round. Okay. So, you're talking about around 100 or so. And the third rounder that Trapasso projects as being traded to the Rams is at the top of the third round. It's number 65. But at least the Giants have the potential to get a third round pick to replace the one that they would be sending in this proposed trade. I mean, that's all the more reason why, to be frank with you, I really look at this proposed trade by Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports, and I'm like, wow, look at that. I find it very hard to find fault or something negative about his proposed deal that would send Matt Stafford to the Giants. Okay. Oh, it's Tudo again. Tudo is back. And we love Tudo. He's always chiming in, and he's a super user here, a super chat user on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. We love the fact that Tudo is always chiming in. Salutos always from all the diehard Giants fans from across the pond, the entire Italian rugby team. How did you guys do last week? Let's see here. Now training in is that North London or North Lyon? I'm not sure if that got cut off, Tudo. I'm working off of my phone tonight. I'm not at my desktop in my office. I'm working off of my phone here. It's a remote show from Indianapolis, so I don't have, quite the comfort zone doing this program as I would at my home office. But I'm doing my best here to bring this program to you folks because I had a feeling that you might really like it. And so that's why we're doing it. So, Tuto, let me just say thank you so much. As always, we really appreciate it. I'm going to go back to the chat and just say, hey, all the best to you guys. I hope you did well last week in your game, and I hope you guys continue to go. All right, let's see what we got here. Going through the chats. And again, folks, at the bottom of the screen, I will try to take a phone call or a video call if you want to try to get in on it. I am here in my hotel room in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, and I would be very glad to try to take a video or audio call from you if you want to give me a shout. There you see at the bottom of the screen, or at least you did a moment ago. Let me see if I can do it. I'll take you off of there. You guys do see the link if you want to try to get in. And we got a whole bunch of love between some of our chat folks, Tudo and Orlando and Christine and Aiden. You guys are some of the regulars on our program, and we're so happy to have you. So anyway, all right. So that's what we've got so far. We've done the show for an hour. I will continue a little bit more if you guys want me to. If you got some more in the chat or if somebody wants to phone in or do a video call, I'd be glad to. Just going to give you a quick recap of a couple of things. If you're joining us late, the talk of the Combine here in Indianapolis is that Rams quarterback Matt Stafford, who is trying to work out a renegotiated deal with the Los Angeles Rams, is having some trouble doing so, and that the Rams organization is not real anxious to meet the price that he would like to obtain, rumored to be somewhere in the vicinity of $50 million a year. That would put him in the top 10 of highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. To go one step further, and again, for those of you who have been on the show since we started, I apologize if this is a repeat. but I know half of our audience came in late. To further explain, it looks as though, based on the sources in Los Angeles, that the Raiders and the Giants are probably the two hottest teams on the trail to potentially make a deal for Stafford. Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports, very well respected sports writer with one of the network sites, he just put out a mock draft a short while ago. In his mock draft, he has Stafford being traded to the Giants along with a sixth round pick in 2026. And he has the Giants sending a third rounder, that's number 65 in this year's draft, and a conditional fourth rounder in 2026 that could become a third rounder in 2026. So those two picks going to LA for Stafford and a sixth rounder in 26. That is a proposed trade by Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports. He then goes on in his mock to say that Las Vegas trades up with Tennessee. They get the number one pick and they draft Shedeur Sanders. We have heard that Sanders has been connected to the Raiders amongst other teams for the last couple of months, so that would not be shocking. He then has Cleveland taking Travis Hunter, which would surprise people here at the Combine because there's an overwhelming opinion here in Indianapolis that the Browns would rather take a quarterback and that they've got to take a quarterback at number 2 because they are in such desperation mode, and that they'll take the plunge even if Ford and Sanders are not rated high enough to be the number 2 overall pick, that they will take one of them. Most people that I've talked to think they would take Cameron Ward out of the University of Miami. And then Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports says the Giants at number 3, they get pass rusher Abdul Carter out of Penn State falling into their laps at the number 3 overall pick. All right, looks like we've got a caller. And we're going to add Aiden to the stage. Aiden, give me half a second here as we correct the layout. And there we go.
Hey, how's it going, Paul?
Here as we correct the layout.
Hey, you got me?
I got you, Aiden. How are you?
Why can't I hear you?
You can't hear me?
Wait.
I got you, Aiden. How are you?
Why can't I hear you? Hold on.
You can't hear me?
Wait, there's an echo.
I got you, Aiden. How are you?
Why can't I hear you? Wait, hold on.
You can't hear me? I don't know. I guess we're having some trouble with the connection on the calls. So I tell you what, Aiden, you're going to have to hit me up on the chat because there was some kind of delay or something going on with the, I guess I'm on the Wi-Fi here in the hotel, but somehow it sounded like there was an extensive amount of delay on the studio call. I know Patty is in the background. She's trying to see if she can kind of technically produce this thing from the backside. Patty says we're going to give Aiden another try. So let's give Aiden another try. Let's see. Nope. Oh, he went away again. All right. Aiden, if you want to give it one more shot, we'll give it a try. I love to talk to people. You guys know that. I love to do it. I love to do the phone calls. I love to do the video calls. If it doesn't work tonight because of that delay that we just heard a few moments ago, and I'm not sure whose end that's on. Again, I'm working here. I feel like MacGyver. You guys remember that series, MacGyver, where the guy would, basically have to construct something out of nothing to help him get through a pickle? Well, that's what I kind of feel like as I'm trying to run this show as MacGyver from the Indianapolis Combine. It had been expressed to me by a lot of folks that they wanted to see if we could do a show the week of the Combine because, obviously there'd be a lot of news. Well, as it turned out, there is a lot of news to talk about. And so it's a really good thing that we have efforted to try to make this thing work. And look, we've been with you now for over an hour. We do have a bunch of folks who have been on the chat. And did you do it again, Tudo? Yes, you did. Tudo, you did it again. Look at this guy. Tudo with another super chat. As always, we appreciate it. Okay, we absolutely do appreciate it. Tudo says, massive salutes to Big Paulie and all diehard Giants fans across the pond. Much love and respect from our entire Italian rugby team. He says here, please suit me up in Giants gear, and I promise there won't be any opposition team's quarterback or offense walk off the pitch on the Powers. Guaranteed. Tudo, I will pass. If you've got some video, we'll pass it along to the Giants personnel staff. Remember, the NFL now has that international pathway program. You know, I'll be frank. I don't know if any Italian players have gotten into the international pathway program, but you're well aware the Giants have had like 3 or 4 players over the years come through that program. I mean, heck, McIntyre, the kicker that they carried this year on the practice squad for most of the season and actually got activated. You know, he's from Ireland, went to Rutgers. You know, so anyway, that's the deal there. All right. So again, Tudo, as always, we thank you immensely for all of your support on this program. Let's see if we can try. We're going to give it a shot. We're going to give it a shot, and we're going to see if we can get Aiden up one more time.
Okay, can you hear me?
Aiden, I got you.
Okay, finally. I don't know what was going on there.
All right. Well, I got you. I got you. So now let me just get Isaac's post down. There we go.
Sure. How's it going, Paul?
I'm okay. What can we do for you tonight?
First, I want to ask your opinion, like personally. I know like how you want the Giants to go after Garoppolo, but would you trade for Stafford, or do you think they're going to end up giving up too much in dead money, that kind of thing?
Well, Aiden, I think the first thing, let me address this in 2 parts. You guys know for quite a long time, I've professed the Giants needed to get a veteran bridge because I didn't think there would be a lot of market available. In other words, I didn't think that you could go to the high level and get someone off the top shelf. I didn't know that Stafford was truly going to be available. And he may not be, by the way. What if the Rams and him come to terms? You know, we don't know. So, you know, at the time, I was thinking that they're not going to be able to shop off the top shelf. I just didn't think that that's what was going to happen because who was available? Well, Kirk Cousins is a name that many people have thrown around. And as you know, he had a poor final month of the season and didn't throw the ball very well. Now, Phil Simms told me he thought that the Achilles injury that Cousins had the year before he wound up getting to Atlanta, ruined his mechanics and subsequently affected his arm. Now, Cousins this week is saying that his shoulder was hurt. Well, a lot of times when that happens, it's because your mechanics are off. So I think Phil Simms was onto something.
Yeah.
When he told me that. So I was kind of wishy-washy on Cousins. We really didn't know if Carr was going to be available or not because their coaching situation looked like it was going to change. And in fact, it has.
Yep.
So I kind of wasn't thinking about Carr. Russell Wilson. The assumption at the end of the season was he led them to a playoff berth with the Steelers. So Russell Wilson's not going to be available. So with Carr, Wilson, and Cousins as the 3 most accomplished quarterbacks who could have been on the marketplace, but it didn't look like they might. Or if Cousins was, he might be injured. I said to myself, I don't think that makes a lot of sense for the Giants. They're going to have to shop on the second shelf instead of the top shelf of the supermarket. They're going to have to go to the second shelf. That's when I then did my diagnostic and said, okay, who checks the most boxes for me? And what I found out was at the time that I did my diagnostic, there were going to be 40 free agent quarterbacks who had played in the National Football League. At the time, Aiden, when I did the list, okay, you only had 14 of them who had been playoff starters. And I thought that would be an important box to check. I also saw that only 6 of the 41 free agent quarterbacks at the time had won a playoff game as a starter. I also saw that only 3 had started the Super Bowl and only 2 had actually won a Super Bowl. That would be Joe Flacco and Russell Wilson. The guy who started the Super Bowl but did not win was Jimmy Garoppolo. It seemed to me, based on Garoppolo's age at 34, the fact that he is now healthy, had a really good game at the end of the season when the Rams threw him in there, and is desperately looking to resuscitate his career as a starter. I also figured the price was not going to be very expensive. He checked all the boxes for me. He checked all the boxes. I know he had injury history. I get
Yeah,
that. But so did Phil Simms. And how did his career turn around?
pretty good.
So that's why I said Jimmy Garoppolo. And I stand by it. I still think Jimmy Garoppolo is a good pick for somebody. I really do. But
Hmm.
not a top shelf pick. Now it's become apparent. Okay? Russell Wilson, from the people that I'm talking to who have connections in Pittsburgh, they think Fields is probably going to be the guy who returns, and Russell Wilson is going to be the guy on the way out. That's what I'm hearing here at the combine.
And what would you rather go for Russell Wilson over Stafford because like he's all the money that Denver is still paying him that you could get a pretty cheap contract?
Well, what I was told is that Russell Wilson is going to probably command about 25 mil a year. But Russell Wilson, as you know, kind of faded down the stretch this past season. And I
Hmm.
would say he looks like a much older 37 than Matt Stafford does. I
Which
think
one?
I think right now at their points in their career, Stafford has a lot more gas in his tank than Russell Wilson, in my opinion.
How do you do you think that Russell Wilson would still be a good option though? Because look, like he wasn't able to do much in Denver, and then he was with a really good coach, Mike Tomlin, this past year. I think like Brian Dable's a pretty good quarterbacks coach. Like how he was able to develop Josh Allen.
Well, there was a stretch this year after they took Fields out where Russell Wilson, I think, won like 6 out of 7 games for the Steelers
Yeah.
and averaged about 29, 28 points a game. So he had a really good stretch. And then when they ran into some trouble against some better teams, against a compact schedule, which was also logistically kind of unfair to the Steelers, he really faded. So, you know, it seems to me that you now have a realistic chance to go after some top shelf guys. Wilson,
Hmm.
Cousins, I don't know what to make of this now. He's saying that he had a hurt shoulder. And he's saying the Falcons didn't know. And the Falcons are saying that they didn't know either. I don't know what to make of that, Aiden.
Hmm.
I don't.
Yeah,
Now
I don't know.
he has offset language. So if you trade for Cousins or if you get him on the free agent market, it's going to cost you less because of the offset language. But also, how do you want to quantify or weigh these stories about him being hurt?
Yeah, exactly. I think Kirk Cousins has like no mobility either, and I think that's a big concern.
Okay, so uh, I kind of, in my own mind, I'm kind of pushing Cousins off to the side. If you have Cousins and you have Wilson and you have Stafford on the top shelf of guys who could be available, I'm kind of pushing right now Cousins off to the side and saying realistically, it's Wilson or it's Stafford. And again, I told you there seems to be some conflicting reports as to how real could Carr be on that shelf. Right now it looks like they're leaning toward keeping him. That's what some of the comments are coming out about. But as I told you before, there are people here at the combine who are still not sure they're going to do that.
If
I think of those three guys, if you want to put Carr on that shelf, of those three guys, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind, and I don't think there's anybody else here in Indianapolis who thinks that you would put Stafford anywhere else except number one. He is the big fish in the pond. Matthew Stafford is the potentially best available quarterback on the market. And so my take to you, Aiden, is that, you know what? Forget about trying to buy that compact SUV.
Mhm.
Okay? Forget about the compact SUV.
Yeah,
Jimmy Garoppolo, like you, Jimmy. Hey, you're a paisan, Jimmy. I love you. But I'm not going for the subcompact SUV anymore. Okay?
no,
I'm going for the Hummer. And Matt Stafford's a Hummer.
yeah. I just hope if we trade for Stafford, I just hope it doesn't end up being like the Jets did with Aaron Rodgers, and it like really doesn't pan out.
I could understand that, but I would also say this to you. Um, if you also looked at the very complicated deal that the Jets and Packers had to make for Stafford, I think there was a slew of draft picks changing hands on that deal. If I'm not mistaken, didn't the Jets wind up sending like five different picks to the
Something,
Packers, and the
yes,
Rams sent back not the Rams, the Green Bay sent back Rodgers and two picks, or Rodgers and three picks. It was crazy.
something. And what was the deal again? Do you remember what the Colts gave up to trade for Matt Ryan?
I mentioned that earlier in the show. It was
Yeah.
one third round pick. That's it.
So do you think it would be something similar that the Rams would be asking of Stafford? Because I remember a few weeks ago they said they want the Giants' first round pick.
Well, that's a rumor that's out there, but no one in the league believes they're going to get a first round pick.
Yeah, I agree with
You
that.
know, and to be honest with you, let's not forget. Okay, I know that occasionally you've heard like these tiny rumblings about, Stafford was a little banged up. He's taking it year to year, doesn't know if he's going to play or not. That's never been a very loud rumble. The people in Los Angeles say more or less those kinds of whispers were because he was hoping to get a better deal, and that the truth is he wants to play many more years and has no intentions of retiring anytime soon. Well, that makes him a much more valuable alternative to Aaron Rodgers, who, we didn't even know, game to game, it's almost like you don't know if he's going to want to play. He's so busy, in that dark room of his.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of baggage. Let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot of baggage when you have Aaron Rodgers on your roster. Matthew Stafford doesn't have baggage.
Yeah, and I think the Giants with the Giants ownership, like I feel like John Mara isn't the kind of guy to tolerate someone with Aaron Rodgers to be the quarterback.
So there you go. So that's my take on it, Aiden.
Yeah, do you based on the talks you had with the Rams people, do you feel like they're gonna get a deal done with Stafford or no?
They'd like to, from what I've been told, and Stafford would like to too. The problem is that they don't seem to be, meeting in the middle in terms of the numbers. And, George Young, the legendary Hall of Fame general manager of the Giants, used to say, even when they say it's not about the money, it's about the money.
Yeah. Does Stafford's mobility concern you at all? When you about considering trading for him?
Well, some. But, as I talked to Greg Cosell this week, who is, from NFL Films and one of the great study gurus of films that you could ever think about in pro football, he flat out said Matt Stafford was the best quarterback in the NFC during the 2024 season. He said that emphatically, that there was no doubt. He was the best quarterback in the NFC. This guy's now going on 37 years old, right? And he was the best quarterback in the conference. And one of the things that I said to Greg in backing up his point is that Stafford can still throw the deep ball. He still has zip on the short laser beam that he's got to throw across the field or outside the numbers. And he still is able to make all the off schedule throws from various arm angles. And that is what makes him so special. It's one of the things that Aaron Rodgers has been able to do over the course of his career that usually made him so special. And quite frankly, think about this too, Aiden.
Yep.
Mahomes, right? Mahomes,
Correct.
Burrow, Stafford, Rodgers, all these guys. And by the way, Stafford's not very mobile. Rodgers, not
No,
very mobile, right? Burrow, not really very mobile.
not that mobile.
Now, Mahomes has more mobility than any of those other guys. But why are they so heralded? Because they are able to make off schedule throws from different arm angles. They make throws that look, I don't want to say physically impossible, but they almost defy geometry and physics. You know, it's like,
Yeah,
wait a
I
minute,
like real
the
plays.
guy's going 3/4 and he's whipping the ball 20 yards out to the sideline. You're not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Malik Neighbors was able to go over 1,000 yards in his rookie year with 4 quarterbacks. Imagine he had Stafford. I feel like he'd be so even better, and he
Sure.
could reach full potential.
Sure. So, Aiden, I love the topics that you brought up because hopefully people out there were thinking some of the same things. And I
Yeah,
was able to talk about some other topics that may, enlighten some folks. But that's really what it comes down to, right? It's not
for sure.
even necessarily, so many people just get all wrapped up with you have to have a mobile quarterback. No, what you have to have is a quarterback who has escapability, not necessarily mobility. Mobility is a quarterback who runs to run. Lamar Jackson runs
Yeah,
to run. Okay? Quarterbacks who have escapability will just buy enough time in or out of the pocket to then be able to use their arm skills to make a throw, even if it's awkward, off schedule, and funky. They're able to complete that pass and make that throw. That's what makes these guys so special.
yeah, and you're saying basically you don't wait. So, but the only thing is you just have to have a functional offensive line to have a. You said the difference
Right,
from escapability and mobility.
right.
I mean the
And
Giants. We have to improve the offensive line, but I mean it started off functional. It's just we had all the injuries. I feel like every year we get the injury bug.
yeah, well, Joe Schoen has been quoted as saying last year when they had their starting five in the first, 5 or 6 weeks of the season, he thought it was a very solid offensive line. It was more than functional. They were pretty good.
Yeah,
And then, of course, the injuries rattled them. And that's why John Mara, Giants co-owner, said in his, end of season press conference, he mentioned one of his three priorities was depth on the offensive line. And Joe Schoen himself has said, we're not sure who our starting right guard is. Greg Van Roten is what, 33, 34 years old. And even though he was functional last year and had a solid season, he was the most consistent Giants lineman because he played every game.
yeah,
Okay? He is an unrestricted free agent. I don't expect he's going to get big money to go. I think he wants to come back to the Giants, and I think they'd like to have him as an insurance policy. But if they can upgrade there, I think they would like to do it. Joe Schoen seems very confident, as he has said several times since the season ended, that he knows he's got four starting offensive linemen. He knows he's got a right tackle, a left guard, and a center. The right guard is the spot that he has said many times that they need to figure that out. They're not sure what it's going to be. And at this point, nothing's off the table. He's been asked about moving Evan Neal into right guard many times in the last 2 years and has said consistently he's a right tackle. Well, at the moment, the last thing that he said on Tuesday was that at the moment, once again, we need to see where things shake out with the roster and we'll address the situation then. So this is basically a wait and see thing, but maybe it is time to give Evan Neal a chance at right guard and see if maybe he should compete at the right guard spot. But you certainly can't say right now in late February that you're going to shift him from right tackle to right guard and just
No,
give him the position. You can't do that, Aiden. You
no,
can't.
absolutely not. Another question I have is how aggressive do you think the Giants are going to be with spending in free agency? Because I feel like on the defense, there's a lot of young guys who have like potential, and there's only like I mean, you could get a lot. I think the Giants are prioritizing a lot through the draft, but like to get a corner and maybe get an offensive like a right guard.
Aiden, I think the best answer I can give you, and talking to folks like Ian Rappaport and some of the other national people who are
Yeah,
plugged into the economics of the NFL, if the Giants make the deal for Stafford, obviously that changes their numbers.
yeah,
There's no question. If they do that,
absolutely.
their numbers are going to change. But the new deal is going to wind up having a weighted effect on the cap to where in the first year of 2025, it's probably going to be very low.
Mhm.
So, and then it will escalate as the years go on. So it will impact the cap. And of course, there's still over $20 million in dead money in the cap because of Daniel Jones's release. So you have to understand that's there. But the Giants are in decent shape financially. The consensus that I've gotten here in Indianapolis is that they will be players in the free agent market, but they're going to be more like maybe what the Washington Commanders did this past year, where they signed a bunch of middle of the road guys to maybe 1 year contracts. That their big splash
Bobby
would
Wagner.
potentially be the deal for the quarterback. And then everything else after that is going to be a lesser headline.
Yeah, I mean it's possible we get Stafford, and then we're just gonna have to deal with the draft picks and what it wouldn't be that much you were saying to deal with the back end of his contract because you say it goes through 25, 26.
Well, right now Stafford's deal is for 25 and 26, but they're going to have to add years to that deal. There's no way that you're going to make a trade for Stafford and not add years to that deal. And obviously you have to add money to it too because that's why he wants a new deal.
Yeah, but can't you yeah, but if you're doing that you're saying to do a trade and sign like the Giants did with Brian Burns.
Well, that's what it becomes. Yes.
Yeah.
It becomes a Brian Burns scenario all over again. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Aiden?
All right, it's good to
Hey,
talk to
thanks,
you.
thanks for chiming in, man. I appreciate you.
Of course, go back to the chats.
All right, have a
All
great
right.
day. Bye. All right, let's see now. We'll go back to the one look. There we go. Whew. I get nervous every time I touch the phone here on this remote. I get very, very, very nervous. It's not like being home in my office. All right, let's see what we can do about getting back to the remotes. Aiden, thanks once again for coming in on video, and I'm so glad we were able to make that work. So big thumbs up to Patty too. I'm sure she had something to do technically on the back end of that phone call. All right, Christine says excellent show. Well, thank you, Christine. Great to see you live. Yeah, well, I'm just glad we got this sucker to work. That's all I've got to say. Like I said, I feel like MacGyver, right? I've got the toothpicks and I'm trying to make it all happen. Christine wants to know, were you able to listen to Carter's media press conference today? Okay, yes. Abdul Carter, edge rusher, very, very businesslike in his demeanor. Very confident young man, very crisp. Um, he says, among other things, every team, this was a quote, every team needs one standout pass rusher, and I'm that. Shows you how confident he is. And he has a right to be. He's a sensational talent. He models himself after Von Miller. And one of the reasons is that he says Von Miller sets up his pass rush and then makes the biggest plays in the biggest moments of the game. Stressed that he has started working out again and he's feeling physically at about 90%. Says he'll play anywhere that a team wants him to, whether it's right side, left side, down, up, whatever they want to do with him. Let's see what else he says. He said he was so happy to finish out the year with his Penn State teammates because he's got great affection for them and wanted to play as many snaps as he could before he went to the NFL. He mentioned that this year he was much more vocal and stepped up his leadership skills this year. See, Christine, I want to make sure we got your question there on the bottom of the screen. In terms of confidence, he said this, quote, I'm the best player in the country. I should be the number one pick. He's got a lot of people who agree with him, by the way. So I guess like Reggie Jackson used to say, if you can back it up and it's the truth, why not? Grew up in Philadelphia and says that that's where he got his toughness and his grit from. He says his goal is to be the guy. As soon as he gets drafted, the question came up about if the Giants were to take you and they have edge rushers Burns and Thibodeau, would you be willing to sit and work behind them for a little while, or would you have to get on the field right away and have the Giants somehow find a scheme that would let all three of you be on the field simultaneously? He said, the goal is to be the guy and to compete for a starting job right away. So those were some of the comments and some of the observations I got from Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State, who everybody believes is not getting past 3 at the Giants. He's either 1, 2, or 3. I have not met anyone who believes that Carter or Hunter, Travis Hunter, will get past the 3rd pick in the draft. It's that simple. Nobody seems to believe that Ward and Sanders will both go in the top 3 picks. Now, how could that happen? I shouldn't say nobody. I'm sure there's some people that I didn't talk to in the convention center who think that could happen. I didn't talk to anyone who really expects the 2 quarterbacks to go inside the top 3 picks. I just didn't. So it remains to be seen. There is no doubt, though, no doubt. Everyone that I spoke with believed that Carter Hunter or Hunter Carter are the 2 best players in this draft. People are split on who should be first, and there's a split. It's not as 50-50-ish as the 2 players, though. The split on Travis Hunter, more people think he should be a defensive back. But there is a section of folks around the combine who do believe that there are some teams that are going to want to use him more as a wide receiver. Not just because of his skills at wide receiver, but because wide receivers make bigger splashes for business purposes. When you draft a guy 1, 2, or 3, you want the big splash. You want the face of the franchise. You want the superstar highlights. Look, I'm not one who wants to talk about the business angle of the game. I'd rather be taking a guy strictly on his tape. But there are some organizations that are going to waste some of that stuff. And it was expressly said to me, well, he's going to be worth more to the organization in terms of hype, excitement, enthusiasm, and marketability as a receiver. So even though they may be very close in terms of his skills, receiver and DB, the one gentleman said to me, and I respect him a lot, I'd put him at receiver. So I suppose there is a faction out there that goes that way. I'm all in on Travis Hunter as a corner. And if he gets a package of 10 plays, to play receiver, that's fine. But I say you gotta start him as a full-time corner. Orlando Mendoza says, do you think we'll be big spenders in free agency? Well, I've already answered that question, Orlando. I do think the Giants will participate, but more on the second level and not necessarily on the high end of the marketplace. Let's see. Iman Perry's laughing, and Isaac Morris says echo chamber. I think that was for the audio issues that Aiden was having as he tried to get in on a video phone call. Okay, let's see here. We'll Talk Entertainment says, folks, hit the like button and subscribe. By all means, why not, right? We're going to try to be here. Geez, I don't know how many more weeks we'll keep this going. If you guys want us to keep going, maybe we'll just keep going all off season. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I really want to see your response. But so far, the response was good enough that we attempted to do this combine show, and the response to the combine show tonight's pretty good. We're up over 860 live views right now in this now the second hour of the program. That's not bad. That's not bad. So we're going to try to be here for you folks if you want us to be here. Christine says, awesome. I guess that may be she liked what she heard on my report of Abdul Carter's media session. Sean Jackson, one of our regulars, says, good evening. I hope all is well for you in Indy. Well, thank you very much. Yes. If Carter and Hunter are available at 3 for the Giants, is your preference Hunter? Who would impact the Giants more, the pass rusher or the corner wide receiver? I'm with Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports on this one, Sean. He is projecting the trade of Matthew Stafford from the LA Rams to the Giants, and then Sanders and Hunter going 1 and 2, and then Carter going to the Giants at 3. If that's the way it falls, Sanders and Hunter, obviously you have to take Abdul Carter. There's no question. If Carter and Hunter are both gone, that's a scenario that I don't think anyone's really thought about, right? If they make the deal for Stafford, who do you then take at the 3rd overall pick if Hunter and Carter are both gone? Well, I'm a Mason Graham guy. I've been talking about that guy for months. And, I'm not going to back off. I am a huge Mason Graham guy. And if Hunter and Carter are both gone, I go Graham. Again, assuming Trapasso's projection of Stafford to the Giants is true. If Hunter and Carter are both available at 3 for the Giants, I would take Hunter. Hunter, shutdown corner, with the ability to also be a receiver. If he flames out on one side or the other, that's okay, because then you flip him to the other side and he can still be an absolute, super dope superstar. Um, yeah, I'd have to go if it's between Hunter and Carter at 3. I'm going to go Travis Hunter, and I appreciate the fact that you can never have enough pass rushers. But here's the problem: also take into account that there are very few top line corners in this draft. And talking to the people here the first 2 days of the combine, the corners in this draft, my notes indicate you're looking at Hunter, the top of the line, Will Johnson, probably the other top 10 first round pick, Siobhan Revel from East Carolina is, by a lot of indications, maybe the next first round corner, and possibly Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Possibly. Those are your 4 corners, maybe, where you draw the line of delineation, and then there is a drop. And it's just not as deep at corner in this draft. It's just not. So I think if you can get the corner, you got to take the corner. And besides the fact that he could play some offense and obviously team with one Malik Neighbors to become an incredibly potent part of what would be a spectacular wide receiver room. Now, as far as edge rushers go, it's a solid edge rushing class. Carter is by far the royal blue chip edge rusher in this draft. And after that, there is a dip. But looking at my notes, you have Jalon Walker out of Georgia, Mike Green out of Marshall, Mykel Williams out of Georgia as well. Probably all first round picks. James Pierce out of Tennessee could easily be one. And as Aruriku, I have so much trouble with his name, much like Jeff Beagles used to have trouble with names. Donovan Ezzy, let's call him, out of Boston College. There's a chance he sneaks into the bottom of the first round too. So, you got a half a dozen maybe first round pass rushers, edge rushers. And then in the second round, you probably have another half dozen. And then even in the third round, you probably have another half dozen. Now, none of them are Carter. Carter is miles ahead of all of the other edge rushers in this draft. There is no question about that. But the level of the edge rushers throughout the first round and throughout the second round into the third round are better than the level of corners that you're going to find as you go deeper into day 2. So I would go Hunter if it's between Hunter and Carter at number 3. Hope that answers the question. Thank you, Sean. Cecil McCathern says pass rusher always impact more. Totally understand that. That's why there's no right or wrong answer, Cecil. There isn't. Because cover corners are also one of the 4 core players you have to have. Right? We all know what they are. You got to have a quarterback. You got to have a stud left tackle. You have to have a stud pass rusher. And you have to have a stud cover corner. Those are the 4 basic requirements that every NFL front office says you need to have if you're going to want to challenge as a playoff team. So we're talking about 2 of the 4 spots. So now you have to take other things into consideration and other pieces of context before you make that decision. My take, I just gave you, throw in the fact that the Giants are thinner at corner when you consider their two starting edge guys are Thibodeau and Burns. I think we would all agree, you know, I'm a big Tay Banks guy, but I know he's underachieved. But compare the level of Thibodeau and Burns on the edge compared to the level of Banks and I guess Cordell Flott. And I like Cordell Flott, but he's not, potential all pro. So to me, it's quite clear your starting duo at edge rusher is significantly better than your starting duo at corner. So I'm taking all that stuff into context, and my preference is going to be to take the corner and throw in the fact that he can also be a star receiver. It's added value. So that's where I'm going, but I don't blame you for going the other way because there is that mantra. You can never have enough pass rushers. Look, Giants went and drafted Justin Tuck and Kiwanuka, and they had OC, and they had Michael Strahan, and they just kept adding pass rushers. JPP. I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. So, Cecil, I have no complaint with you going for the pass rusher. None whatsoever. We'll talk entertainment. Says Stafford, he means Stafford, is looking for the money in the $40 to $50 million range a year. Yeah, there's no question about that. Not sure that aligns with what the Giants are trying to do cap-wise. Actually, we'll talk entertainment. It can work. It can work. And one of the reasons it can work is because of how you balance it out. And as we told you, they can throw void years on the deal. And as we move on, the NFL revenues and the cap number continues to go up, 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 and up, even more than it's been projected to. So fitting him in is not going to be that much of a problem. It can be done. Sean Jackson says if Stafford is only to potentially cost the Giants sixth round and fourth round pick, what's the catch as far as his contract? Giants aren't a quarterback, especially an older quarterback, away from really competing. Well, Sean, it's a two-pronged deal, right? One is that you have to make a deal with Stafford that he's going to like, right? He's got to be agreeable to the contract that you're going to want to give him when you make this trade. Then the second part is you're going to want to get a satisfactory price from the Rams. So yes, there are two parts to this situation. Now, the sixth and the fourth that we're talking about, well, actually, it's not a sixth and a fourth. It's a third rounder, according to Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports. His speculation, he's not predicting this. His speculation, he's not saying he knows anything. I don't want you guys freaking out that, he is citing a source. He is not citing a source. He's doing a mock draft, and he is speculating that the Giants are going to be able to deal a third rounder this year and a conditional fourth rounder that could become a third in 2026, and that would be the draft compensation for Stafford. So, Sean, you have that part of it wrong in your note. But again, the point is, this is speculation by Trapasso that would be the price. We know the Rams are going to want more than that. But what will they eventually settle on if they've decided that they cannot re-sign Stafford? Okay, Rich Carlton says, not for the Giants. I don't know what that's in response to. I wish I did. Elo H, what do you think about Will Hernandez possibly coming back? He is a free agent under 26 has been a solid starter for the Cardinals. Elo H, I would be very surprised. If you wanted a right guard that I think any team would be curious about if they're looking to plug in somebody there, but it's only a stopgap. He's in his mid-30s. Zeitler. Zeitler was here. Remember the trade with Cleveland? Odell Beckham Jr.? And Zeitler played for the Giants and then was a cap casualty. And they had to lose him. But he has continued to play at a high level. He's now 35 years old, and it's entirely possible that he won't get a new deal and is going to be on the street. At least right now, that's what it sounds like. He liked it here, and the Giants were very happy with him too. So would you? And he's did you watch him this past year? He's still good. But now, if you sign him, that's not a long-term thing. If you sign him, you're signing him like a Greg Van Roten, right? You're signing him to just plug a hole. Now, he's a better plug than Greg Van Roten. He's going to cost more than Greg Van Roten. I don't know how much you're going to get out of him. I mean, some of these offensive linemen play till they're 40, and they're still pretty good. So how much tire or rubber is left on the tire of a Zeitler? I don't know the answer to that. I know he's still pretty good. So that might be a guy who, if you were in the Giants situation, you might make a phone call to and just check it out. Rich Carlton says, Russell Wilson is washed up, bro. Since he left Seattle, he is done. Rich, I am not advocating that Russell Wilson be the answer to the Giants' quarterback puzzle. I am much more, with a capital M, much more in favor of something working out with the Rams. If Stafford is indeed going to be dealt. Again, I have to say that all the time because he is the property of the Rams. He's under contract to the Rams. And until such time that they pull the trigger, he is a Ram. But I don't think anybody, again, I'm going to repeat myself here at the Combine, there are no dissenting opinions here. Everybody in Indianapolis believes that Matthew Stafford is the gem of the potential quarterback marketplace, and rightfully so. Sean Jackson says, Paul, the Giants have so many holes, unfortunately. Shane has mentioned not shopping hungry, so does it really make sense paying Stafford 40, 50 mil or 25 mil to Russell Wilson when the Giants have many needs? Well, Sean, I think, let me go back here. Sean also says the Rams were close to beating the Eagles this past playoff. So why would the Rams give up on Stafford now? I'm not buying Stafford even wanting to come to rebuilding Giants. I agree with Aiden. Don't want our Giants to become the Aaron Rodgers Jets if we get an older Stafford. Okay. Here's the deal. Number one, Stafford is a much better overall situation than Aaron Rodgers is. We know that Rodgers is rather flaky, to be honest, unorthodox in his views and his thoughts, and you never know what he's going to do or say. And, the retirement threats by him have been strong and sporadic. So please don't compare the two at all. Please don't. There is no comparison in that regard in terms of the intangibles, the locker room, and the off the field portfolio, Stafford is much more desirable than Aaron Rodgers. As far as their talent, they both have put forth sensational NFL careers. Rodgers and Stafford are probably both going to be Hall of Famers. I don't think that's a stretch. Rodgers for sure, and I think Stafford's got a real good case too. He may have to wait a while. I mean, certainly they're making Eli wait. Better make Stafford wait whenever he retires too. And as far as Sean's other comment, again, there are enough of people here, educated people here at the Combine from around the league, who don't think the Giants are as far away as you think. We can all have an opinion on that. And nobody's right until they play out this season with whatever the new roster is and the Giants land where they're going to land. Why would the Rams give up now? Because the Rams are clearly in a turning over the leaf kind of mode. From talking to the pipeline I have to Los Angeles, they would like to go cheaper on a quarterback. They would like to reconstitute their cap situation and their salary structure. That is why they've told Cooper Kupp he can have permission to find a trade, because they don't want to pay Cooper Kupp the money that he's going to be owed in the next 2 years. They don't want to pay the outstanding Matt Stafford the money that he is going to want over the course of the next 2 years. So it's strictly a money crunch by the Rams. This is what happens when you are subjected to a salary cap. You know, when they didn't have this back in the 70s, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers won 4 Super Bowl titles over a 6-year span because they were able to keep it together. I think they have 11 Hall of Famers in their starting lineup between offense and defense. Okay? Because you didn't have a salary cap that basically ripped your lungs, your kidneys, and your liver out of your roster. It forces you to rip your team apart. It's the way it is. All right. Shanita Jackson. We've had her on the program before. She says, you said rumor is the Raiders would trade up to number 1 with the Titans. What was the rumored price tag for that trade up? It wasn't my rumor, Shanita. Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports has a new mock draft he put out a few hours ago. I would invite you to go look for him. Trapasso is Trapasso, Chris Trapasso, CBSSports.com. He's got his latest mock draft, which has the projected trades in it. I strictly looked at the projected trade he had involving the Giants. He did have a projected trade, though. Las Vegas moving up, getting the number 1 pick from Tennessee to take Shedeur Sanders. I just did not pay attention. It didn't involve the team that we talk about, so I saw the trade. It was important to line up how he saw the top 3 picks falling, but it was not important enough for me to see what price tag he was putting on that deal with the Raiders. Teray Jackson says, yes, keep going. I guess that's a thumbs up in terms of doing these shows. Well, I hope you guys like it. We're up over 900 views live right now. That's kind of cool. Aiden Fink, who we just saw earlier on a video. Who is the day 3 gem at quarterback for the Giants, in your opinion, in the event we trade for Stafford? Or do you have a sleeper that could go in round 3? What do you think the Giants would do? All right, here's the thing, Aiden. I think if the Giants make the deal for a quarterback, you want to be able to take Hunter or Carter with the 3rd pick in the draft. That's what you want. Best case scenario. Star quarterback in a trade, Hunter or Carter at number 3. Now, I'm going to assume they would hold on to their second round pick this year. Okay? If they're able to do that, let me go through my notes here. If they're able to do that, all right, that means they would have pick number 34 overall in this draft. Okay? Now, at pick 34, I would probably, it's going to be really hard. I would probably want to get myself a stud defensive tackle with that second round pick because I suspect, and the quarterbacks are going to throw in their workout on Saturday. And a lot of people think that that's going to have a dramatic impact on where the second level of quarterbacks go. So let me preface this by saying the second level of quarterbacks, Dart and Jalen Milroe and Tyler Shough out of Louisville is now getting a lot of push. Here at the Combine, a lot of people are starting to say now he is reaching into the Dart/Milroe category. There's a strong feeling Milroe is going to go at late first round. That's a very strong feeling that is being floated about here at the Combine. Dart's going to go late first round. You have a better chance of getting Milroe at the beginning of the second. I would not draft Milroe with the 34th pick of the draft. I would much rather go for Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon, if he was still available. Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, who was going to be right there on the cusp of the first or second round. And in the third round, I probably, at this point, I'm thinking maybe in the third round, I might take a stab at that quarterback project. Now, if you're not going to keep your early third rounder, all right, that means either you're going to have to take it with your third round compensatory or in the fourth round, which is pick number 104 overall. 104 overall. Now, if you're going to do that, I don't know if Shough is going to still be there. Is McCord going to still be there? Is Will Howard going to be there? And there's some very mixed reviews on Will Howard. Some people really love what he did, and I really did love what he did also during the college football playoffs. He was terrific. So do you take a Will Howard maybe at the bottom of the third round as your project quarterback? Maybe you do. Maybe you do. I like Jackson Dart as the best of the second grouping. And I have professed that, hey, I'd love to come out of this draft with Carter or Hunter, and then Dart in the second round. I've been I would be very happy with that. But I'm kind of leaning now toward going for one of these stud defensive tackles because the first two rounds in particular The first two rounds in particular are really heavy in dynamite defensive tackles. Although, here's the consensus. Defensive tackle, you guys know Daniel Jeremiah, of course, from NFL Network. He's saying that there are 24 defensive tackles in his top 100 in this draft. 24. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And that's not unique, by the way. There are quite a few people who think there are at least 20, if not more, defensive linemen, per se. Some of these guys can move in and out, and they're including edge rushers in that. Easy in the top 100. And there are good, solid, starting caliber defensive tackles in particular that are going to be available in the fourth round. Guys like Ty Hamilton, J.J. Pegues, Yaha Black. These guys should all be there on the beginning of the third day. And they project by a lot of these folks here at the Combine as good, solid, starting caliber players. But if you want to put somebody really special, I shouldn't say special, but one of the higher level, better chance to make a difference in conjunction with Dexter Lawrence, I couldn't blame the Giants if they took a defensive tackle with pick number 34 and decided to put off the quarterback thing till the third round. I could not blame them because I don't see Dart getting to 34. Jackson Dart's probably going to go sooner. And so I don't know that there's a quarterback worth the 34th pick. And I know that there are defensive tackles worth the 34th pick. Thank you, Aiden. Let's see who else we got here. Isaac Moore. I think adding Stafford would give us more respect in the division and nationally, but we have to get right in the other areas too. Well, Isaac, you're certainly right. There's no question about that. Look, the Giants, they're in a very good position in one way. What they need to get is available. They have the chance to go get a proven star veteran quarterback. It looks like they're going to have the chance to do that. They're going to be in position to get a star edge rusher. They will be in position to get a star corner if that's what they so desire. They'll be in position because running backs are plentiful. It is the second deepest position in this draft. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities, potentially in the fourth round, to maybe get an Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State or a Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State. You're going to be able to get some really stud running backs all the way into the fourth and fifth rounds. And the Giants would like to add another running back to the room. They're going to be able to add, if they want to, a solid wide receiver in the fourth or fifth rounds. Now, again, star receivers, it's not a great draft for star receivers up at the top. We all know about McMillan out of Arizona. He's the number one receiver virtually on everybody's board. And that's fine. And there's probably going to be three, maybe Burden and Egbuka out of Ohio State, Burden out of Missouri, Golden out of Texas could be. So maybe there are 3 or 4 wide receivers in the first round of this draft. Okay, that's fine. But there's a bunch of good ones, not stars, but good ones as you go into the second day and then even into early third day. Offensive line. Let's talk about that for a second, right? We know the Giants would like to add some offensive line depth. Well, guess what? There's some of those guys too. There's guys who are considered solid depth pieces at guard, not so much a tackle. There's a lot more guard prospects in this draft than there are tackle prospects, right? You know, pretty much we know that Campbell out of LSU, Simmons out of Ohio State, and Banks out of Texas. Those are probably, your 3 first-round tackles. Connerly, borderline, right? Then after that, there's quite a dip in the tackles. And in fact, the next line of tackles you're talking about might even wind up moving to guard. So there's more depth pieces at guard than there are at tackle in this draft. And the Giants need guard depth. Okay? If worst comes to worst, they could, like I say, they could try moving Evan Neal inside, or they could re-sign Greg Van Roten. If they decide they need a starter and one of the guys that they draft isn't ready to compete as a starter, that's fine. That's not a problem. So, Isaac, do you see, in all honesty, based on the caliber of the Giants' needs at the positions that they need, they're kind of fortunate. And they also have a decent amount of cap money. So if they decide that they want a second level veteran who is an upgrade over what they have, they should be able to afford some of those guys. That's probably, when you think of all of those things, plus what we said earlier in the program about the Giants having a very young roster, one of the 5 youngest rosters in the NFL based on starters, and guys who have what we believe to be some really serious upside. Well, you put those two things together, and that's why there are people who think during this offseason the Giants can be one of the surprises of the 2025 NFL campaign. Now, I'm not saying they're going to the Super Bowl. I'm not even saying that they're going to be a second round playoff team. And I'm not even saying that they're going to be a wild card team. But from the depths of only 3 wins last year, what I'm saying is I realistically understand those people who believe that the Giants could be at least in the conversation toward the end of the season, playing meaningful games with a potential wild card spot on the line. Now, I get it. That requires some doing. They're not there today. They're not. Right now, they have a handful of holes to fill and one mega hole to fill. The quarterback spot. Yes. Yes. Right now, they are a work in progress. No question. I don't want anybody coming back to me saying, you think this is a playoff roster. No, folks, right now, today's New York Giants, no. Right now, they're not even a 500 roster. But I think there's enough there that with the right additions, which are all plausible, watch how fast they start going in the other direction. They start climbing. It's still going to take time. Certainly, it's still going to take time. I'm not saying, let me do this again. I'm not saying the Giants are playoff contenders. And even if all of this stuff works and they go to these thin spots and weak spots and holes and they get the guys that they want, and it's like, okay, that worked, boom, that worked, boom, that worked, boom, that worked, boom. Even if all these spots work, I'm still not telling you the Giants are a playoff team. So please don't anybody tweet me, oh, that you're crazy, you're a homer, you said the Giants are a playoff team. Don't do that. I didn't say it, so don't you say that I did. Okay? What I am saying is that this team can significantly improve and be on the right track and on the upswing to the point where you'll notice a big difference in the quality of play and in your enjoyment of watching this team, provided these reasonable additions are found. That's what I'm saying. I hope everybody's on the same page. Listen to that entire statement and understands what I just said. Because too many people have selective listening and selective hearing, and they like to edit out certain phrases, and they hear one word or another word or four-word phrase, and that's all they hear, and they shut everything else out, and they don't get the rest of it in context or the explanation, and then they have a complete misinterpretation of everything that was said. All right, let's see. What else can I tell you folks? Because I don't see any other people on the chat, and we have nobody on the phone and nobody on the video call. So let me see here. We've got 8 minutes left in the program. I'm going to take this thing till 10:30 Eastern Time. Okay? We've got well over 950 people on the live stream right now, and I very much appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let me see if there's a couple of other notes and tidbits that I can give you. Um, yeah, let's do this. You guys know how much, if you follow me at all, how big a fan I am of Mason Graham. And it's unanimous in terms of what people think about him. I mean, this guy's an unbelievable player. If you watch his tape, he is completely disruptive. You can't block him one on one. He splits double teams. He's got a motor that is off the charts. He pursues. He constantly gets upfield. Uh, knows how to use leverage and technique. To be honest, comboing him with Dexter Lawrence is just, I can't even contemplate how sweet that would be. Wow. Wow. Anyway, some of the notations that I made from my meeting with Mason Graham today, let me see if I can give you some of those because he is such a highly rated player. He doesn't look the part. When you see him, let me give you his height and weight. 6'3", 320. He doesn't look it. He looks at least a couple of inches shorter, and he probably looks about 10 or 15 pounds leaner than that. He's not as physically imposing when you see him. In fact, talking to Charles Davis, you guys know him from NFL Network and CBS Sports. Charles Davis agreed with me. He said, it's uncanny. The guy you see in person, it belies what he does on the field. His tape, what he does when you see him play on the field, makes you salivate. In person, what did I write? I wrote down he is a very modest dude. Smallish frame, does not look imposing or impressive, and has a very calm demeanor. Well, if you've watched Mason Graham at all, you see the kind of energy and ferocity and violence that he plays with. He's a total disruptor. Doesn't present that at all off the field. Talked about how well and how important it is for he and Kenneth Grant, who is basically this year's draft version of Dexter Lawrence, right? Grant's numbers, just so you know, he's the other defensive tackle for Michigan. Grant is 6'4", 342 pounds. Okay? Right now, he is down to 332, Kenneth Grant. I talked to him today, too. Okay. So, Graham says it was important how he and Graham worked with each other, and they were a tag team, which obviously you want that mentality because if he comes to the Giants, you'd want him to work with Dexter Lawrence. He said one of the best things about himself is that off the field, he minds his own business, and you never have to worry about any problems with him. He is a hard worker. He says that one of his best games, if you look back, he said he had a broken thumb that forced him to miss a couple weeks. And then the week after, his first game back after a broken thumb, he said he dominated. And he was very happy about that because he was coming off an injury. That tells you a lot about a guy. Says he loves the way he plays with his physicality. It's very important to him. And his consistency, playing every play with that type of energy and emotion. Says he's been coached well his whole life from the time that he grew up as a little kid. He's always had great coaches who set great examples for him, and he always put in the extra time and the extra work ethic because of the way these coaches taught him from the time he was a youth. He said his goal and his motto is to affect every snap. So those are the notes that I took on Michigan defensive tackle Mason Graham. Again, universally, no matter how you cut it, a top 5 pick in this draft. I'll give you Kenneth Grant just because I'm on the topic of Michigan defensive tackles. He played at 345 this year, but he's down to 332 now. I laughed when I described him to some people. I said it looked like he needed 2 podiums instead of only 1. That's how big, boxcar-y, and wide he is. He really has that Dexter Lawrence type of presence. Extremely respectful in his demeanor. Very astute, very smart. Very, very much a pleasure to speak with. Says he wants people, though, that he is much more agile and faster than they think he is, that he gets sideline to sideline, and that he's a super athlete and he can rush the passer, despite the fact that a lot of people just think he's a big run-stuffing, block in the middle of a defensive lineup. He talked about being a tag team with Mason Graham. His quote was, "He eats, I eat." Again, this is a guy very unselfish, likes to be part of a tag team duo. Stressed his intelligence level, saying that he knows most of what he has to know in football because he has spent so much time studying it. Knows there's going to be an adjustment and he was going to want to know more. In fact, he said he's actually working on more power as he gets to the NFL because power, he says, sets everything else up for him. And his 2 guys that he likes to look at in the NFL are Dexter Lawrence and Vita Vea. Said both of those guys are bulldozers. No surprise, right? So those are the 2 Michigan defensive tackles. I was able to talk to both of them. Now, in terms of who might be there, Grant is more of a I don't want to say he's a carbon copy of Dexter Lawrence, but he's more of the nose tackle. He's the plugger, right? Um, Mason Graham is more of the three technique. He's the more of the penetrator. Now, Derek Carmen did not come out in time. I had to do the Big Blue Kickoff live show, and I don't think Carmen ever made it out to the podium, but I would like to have talked to him because he could be there for the Giants potentially. There's a shot at 34. I don't know if he will be. Grant, same thing. Tyleik Williams, I don't believe I got a chance to talk to him. I don't think he came out. I think he was still in the medical evaluations at the time when I had to leave. Oh, so, yeah. All right. So I gave you my notes on Abdul Carter. I gave you my notes on Mason Graham. I gave you my notes on Kenneth Grant. Is there anybody else? Real quick. We're gone to 2.5 hours now. I'm pretty much prepared to call it a night. Is there one other person maybe that somebody along defensive line or edge that somebody else might want to know about? I'd be willing to share you what I got. There was one very interesting guy. Let me give you this while I have a minute. Heck, we're almost up to nearly 1,000 live views tonight. I'd love to get this sucker to 1,000. We're at 987. I'd love to get this to 1,000 before I sign off. Do you know anybody you can call or message and tell them to join? It's 10:32 Eastern Time, which means it's only 7:32 out on the West Coast. Anybody out there in California want to join us? Um, Here's a guy who I really like for the Giants, potentially. J.J. Pegues out of Ole Miss. I like him. I like him a lot as somebody who's going to be later on down the road. We're talking about, early third day. Because I think the Giants will take two defensive tackles. One guy maybe who can play end tackle, defensive tackle, and one guy who's just going to play defensive tackle. I think with all of the depth and the really good prospects along the defensive line in this draft, I think you could afford to take two of them. I want two of them. Now, you could, if you wanted to, see if you get a free agent. I think I've talked about it on the earlier show with Big Blue Kickoff. Somebody like B.J. Hill really liked being here. He's an unrestricted free agent with the Bengals, and I don't think they're bringing him back. He's had a nice career. The Giants know what he is. He knows what the Giants are. I think a guy in the Giants spot, a team in the Giants spot, would probably want to give B.J. Hill a call. And I'd have absolutely no problem seeing him on this team, and I suspect he would come at a reasonable price. But would you want a Hill and then draft one? You have to draft one. Maybe you draft two and don't bother with the free agency. See, this is why the next 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, this is why free agency opens March 10th. That's when agents can start talking about deals. March 10th with other teams. That's why that week is so important to what the Giants are going to do in the draft. It really is. It's critical. All right. So, J.J. Pegues, I talked to him too. Now, why do I want to bring him up to you folks? Well, because you're going to be able to get him on the early third day. Now, Pegues, why do I mention him? I mention him because he's incredibly versatile. And let me see what they're listing him at. They're listing Pegues at 320 pounds. That's what I have for him. Okay. So he extremely polite young man, very well spoken, great demeanor. Okay. He he's visited with the Giants. Okay. I also checked, by the way, on these guys who we're talking about. Um, Not all of them said that they had been. Let me see here. Pegues did confirm that he had visited with the Giants. 320 pounds. In high school, he played running back, tight end, and quarterback. Okay. So when he got to college, those who knew of his versatility and athleticism decided that they were also going to use him as a wildcat running back and as a running back on occasion at the NCAA level. Now, what are some of the things that he highlighted at his podium? He said, well, learning both offense and defense growing up through high school and college helped him immensely to grow as a person because of the work ethic, but also as a player. Because he said every time he lines up, either on either side of the ball, he's got it in his head. He knows the keys and he thinks he knows what the other guy's options are as to what they're going to do. And now he's processing all of that in his head like a quarterback and able to then try to take advantage of what he thinks he's going to be able to take advantage of. So J.J. Pegues is a very interesting prospect for me early on the third day as a depth defensive tackle. He's very, very proud of his vertical range to get up and down the line. And also, once he gets through the line, his ability to penetrate into the backfield. He says what he really enjoys doing is being put up against the center. He said, if the guy next to me is taking a double team and I can go one on one against the center, I have more athleticism and I move very, very well. Again, he's got offensive and defensive traits. He says that centers, and he's right, are usually the least athletic of the offensive line. So he says anytime that someone takes a double and then puts me up against the center, he feels like he can win that matchup every time. So those were some of the things that I gleaned from J.J. Pegues. Very, very interesting. There was somebody else here that I really wanted to tell you guys about. Let me see here. Oh, I know what you're going to love. You're going to love this one. Let me see. Where is he? James Pierce. James Pierce from Pierce Purse. I must confess to you folks, because I don't, I'm a late comer, at the end of the season to start catching up on all of this homework. I may not be the best with the pronunciations all the time, but if you wanted to look him up, obviously, I believe it's James Pierce, terrific edge rusher out of Tennessee. He has visited with the Giants, had a serious meeting with them. His demeanor during the press briefing today was much more casual. He gave a lot of very short answers. He didn't seem as comfortable in the spotlight or dealing with the media questions. Again, I wrote specifically much more casual in trying to deal with it. He wasn't very assertive. He wasn't as assured of himself or confident. Not to say that that was bad, but these were the traits I noticed. He said the guy he watches film of most is LT. Now, that's pretty interesting, though, because as you know, a lot of young players these days don't really want to pay much attention to tradition. But the guy he watches the most is LT. Says he grinds day in and day out and loves it. His quote that I wrote down, he goes, people don't know I've got the strength. He says he's all about power. And he says, I also want to make sure that I let the teams know that I will be me. He is an individual, and he's very much about his own individualism. He says he wants to improve working with his speed, his hand speed. Okay? Says that that's one thing he wants to get a lot better at because he's relying more on power at the college level. As he comes to the pros, he wants to get more hand speed involved. One thing he said about Lawrence Taylor, somebody said to him, what is it that you loved about Lawrence Taylor? And he said, he is it. He's everything football needs. And I'm going to be it too. Extremely confident young man. Sometimes too much confidence can get you caught into some trouble. But anyway, that was James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee, who is expected to be one of the first round picks. Obviously, unless the Giants move down in the first round or move up into the later first round, they're not going to have a chance to draft him. But I thought I would tell you that because he was very effusive when talking about Lawrence Taylor. Was there? You know what? I'm going to tell you about one other guy, and by the way, we're now over 1,000 live views on the show. So thank you, folks. You did what you had to do, right? You got us over 1,000. That's really cool, and I'm so glad and grateful for all of you who joined. Quickly, just a couple of notes on the chat, and then we'll go back to one more note on our combine notes. Isaac Morris says, I think adding Stafford. Okay. We got to that one already. Cecil McCatherine says, Hunter, Ward, or Carter only. Hey, trust me, my friend, you wouldn't be sad and you wouldn't be sorry if you drafted Mason Graham. Believe me. Sean Jackson says, if Carter and Hunter were already gone by the third pick, would you pick Mason Graham or listen to trade offers from the Raiders or anyone else in the top 10 or pick Cam or Shador to learn from Stafford? No, I would not pick the quarterback. Would I listen to trade offers from the Raiders? Well, that depends on if the Raiders had already moved up into the top 2 because they may have already done that. They are desperate to get one of these quarterbacks, and they may have already done that. If they have not, I would listen. As I have said many times in the last 2 months, one of the Giants' options would be to trade down from 3 to potentially 6 if the Raiders were still looking to pluck one of the quarterbacks that was still on the board. But I'm going to be greedy. You know, it's going to take an awful lot. A Godfather offer, as we say, which is an offer you can't refuse. It's going to take a lot. I'm going to want their number 1 next year, and I might even want their number 2. It's going to take a lot for me not to take Mason Graham in that spot. James O'Keefe says, hi, Paul, you're a beast. Some people just think I'm crazy, and maybe I'm a little of both. I wish we could bottle up your energy and inject it into some of our Giants players. James, I've heard many people say that over the years. You're not the first. Timothy Menez says, keep up the great work. Always appreciate the wisdom. Also says, you have done your scouting on Shamar Stewart. Feels like the perfect Giants edge. Well, hey, let me give you my comments on Stewart because I did chat with Stewart. Okay. Stewart is a lean 285 pounds as he described himself today. And yes, I like him more as a down defensive end. You know, some people were talking about having him play up. I want him at 6'5", 285. I want his hand in the dirt. And I do like him, by the way. All right. Very relaxed at the podium. Very relaxed demeanor. Very comfortable taking questions, talking about all kinds of topics. He said, growing up in Florida, where they have so many outstanding football players and very fast football players, he said that just made him fast because you had to be. If you were going to be running around with guys who were going to be fast, you had to be fast too. He calls himself, quote, a sack chasing warrior. Says that he wants to play more under control when he actually breaks through and gets to the quarterback so that he can finish more. By the way, Vinny G-Man says, Salute, came on late. How you doing, Vinny? Shamar Stewart we're talking about says he likes to model himself after Julius Peppers. He was explosive, strong, and powerful. Says the body type is very similar, and that's true. He thinks his ability is very similar. And he spent a lot of time watching Julius Peppers tape on YouTube. Of course, Julius Peppers, Hall of Famer. Says it's all about the work you put in, not about where you're from. Okay? Stewart understands, Florida is a very big hotbed for high school football and even college, right? It's produced a lot of great players, but he doesn't want to rest on those laurels. Texas A&M has had some, pretty strong line play over the years, and says, you don't want to rest on that either. Says he really appreciates the finer points of technical players who are very, very good with their technique and details. And that's always something coaches love to hear about. He says he will play at any weight, whatever they want him at, he says he will get there. Again, right now we're talking about a guy who's 6'5", 285. I like him at that weight. I don't want him to drop. If you drop him, there's a better chance that you're going to want to play him as a stand-up. I kind of like him with his hand in the dirt as a defensive end, which means you're going to want him to stay at 285. I love this other thing, too. He said stats, the production, which is graded out by stats lines, are a little bit overrated. He says the film tells you what's really going on. You have to watch very carefully. And that's how you should judge players, not by their stat line. And there's a lot of truth to that. Although you can't ignore production either, obviously. I'm a little bit, like he said, production's a little bit overrated, is what he said. And I can understand that, unless the production is so incredible. But this is why you can't just look at the stats on the page and say, that's the guy I want. You got to watch the tape. All right. All right, good stuff. All right, what else do we have here? Ask 7. If DaCosta, Roseman, Snead, or Veach replaced Joe Schoen as the GM this past January, none of those GMs would trade for Stafford. Well, if you know all 4 of those guys and you've had them on the phone and you've given them this particular roster and given them all the details of the cap and the draft choices and so forth and so on, if you've done all of that and they have told you, then you could make that statement. But Ask 7, I got a hunch that you didn't talk to them. Nope. And I got a hunch you also didn't talk to them in the context of what the Giants have. So I'm sorry, your hypothetical doesn't have any foundation behind it. But appreciate the thought anyway. All right, well, we're about 10 minutes away from going a full 3 hours with you folks tonight. And we are still holding strong at over 1,000 live views. So let me see if I could take it to the full 3 hours. I didn't expect that we were going to do this. but obviously the combine has attracted a lot of folks. I don't know how many of you are coming in late. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a very, very, very quick recap. The story of the combine here today is that most people believe that Matt Stafford will not be able to come to terms with the Rams on a new deal to redo his deal and get an extension. It is a very strong feeling throughout Indianapolis that Stafford will be dealt. The two primary teams that most people think are hottest for him are the Giants and the Raiders. At one point, there was a rumor a week or so ago that if Stafford was to be dealt, the Rams would love to get a number one pick this year. No one in Indianapolis believes that that's realistic. Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports some hours ago posted a mock draft which included Stafford being traded to the Giants with a sixth round pick in 2026. And the price for the Giants was pick number 65 this year, which is a third rounder, and a conditional fourth rounder in 2026 that, based on certain conditions, could be escalated to a third rounder in 2026. He then had Las Vegas trading with Tennessee to move up to number one to grab Shedeur Sanders. He had Cleveland taking Travis Hunter, and he had the New York Giants at number three taking Abdul Carter. That's what Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports wrote earlier today. Also, to kind of wrap up the rest of the information about Stafford that's been bandied about at the convention center, is that Stafford is looking to redo his deal to get top 10 quarterback money or about 50 mil. Kyler Murray is 10th in the NFL amongst quarterbacks with an average salary of over 46 mil. Jalen Hurts is ninth with an average of 51 mil. So you could figure somewhere 48, 49, 50. It makes perfect sense based on word that was floated by one of the national media, I believe, within the last several days. Stafford's contract right now runs through the 25 and 26 seasons. So, what the Giants would want to do, or any team would want to do, if you were going to go after him, you get permission from the Rams. It has been reported by several outlets today, including some in Los Angeles. It has been reported, but not confirmed by either the Rams, the Giants, or Stafford's people, that the Giants have already reached out and spoken with Jimmy Sexton, the agent for Matthew Stafford. That's the reports that are out there. Again, Rams, Giants, Sexton not confirming this, and that there have been conversations as to what type of contract would be necessary to make Stafford happy if the Giants would then be able to call the Rams and tell them, yeah, we've worked out a deal with your guy, much like what they did with Carolina last year. And they worked out a deal with Brian Burns with permission, and then went back to the team and said, we've got a framework of a deal with him. Now we need to find out what you guys want in trade. So that's where it stands right now. If something's going to happen, you would assume it's going to happen within the next 10 days or so. Obviously, we know that free agency starts on March 10th. That is when the tamper period begins, where agents for free agents can talk to teams and verbally agree to the framework of a deal. That's obviously also when teams are going to be flying around with their trades. I mean, it's all coming up. It's all coming up within the next 2 weeks. It's going to be fast and furious. There are going to be trades. There's going to be free agents agreeing to deals. And these things are going to set up the draft. Now, I've had occasionally people, by the way, say, well, I thought you build through the draft, but Here's the other part to the theory, and sometimes they come from different angles, right? Yes, for the long term, you build for the draft. Every franchise plans their roster construction in 3-year increments in terms of their salary structure, what their anticipated play snap structure is, and what their anticipated depth is going to be. They always sketch that out in 3-year increments, specifically because of cap issues and how the contracts will fall. You don't want too many ending at the same time because that will cripple your team. So, in that regard, yes, you draft with that in mind. But what you do with free agency is, as many GMs have said over the years, if you're able to acquire significant needs in free agency, then you don't have to go hungry into the draft. Ernie Accorsi used to say, and Jerry Reese did too, because he was an Ernie Accorsi disciple. You never want to go into the draft saying, I have to get X. If you have a desperate, desperate need for something, what you want to try to do is see if you can get it before the draft. If it won't break your back, try to get it before the draft so that when you get to the draft, you can lean more on best player available and have a higher percentage of getting successful players. If you go into the draft with desperate holes that are just the size of a Grand Canyon, you're going to be much more likely to push a guy up on your board higher than his grade is because you are itching to fill that hole. And when you do that, every general manager who's ever been in this league will tell you, when you reach, when you force, you increase the chances that you will have a mistake. That's kind of the dichotomy between the two theorems. Drafting is keeping a little bit more in mind of the 3-year plan. Free agency trade is more about immediacy. But over the long haul, you have to have consecutive good drafts. So that's what happens when people say you build through the draft. You have to have multiple good drafts over the course of time. You don't always have to have a great year with trade or free agency. You could have one of those every 10 years, perhaps. But the draft is something that consistently over time, you have to have multiple good drafts. That's why people say that. All right, let's see. James O'Keefe says, if that's the price, I guess he's talking about Stafford, I do it. We have the money, no real loss of draft stock. James, I understand exactly where you're coming from. Again, I don't know how Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports came up with this as the appropriate trading price for Matt Stafford. But if that's it, I totally respect your desire to go through with that type of trade. Yeah, it would instantaneously make the team getting Stafford a much, much better club. All right, folks. We only had one video call tonight. It was Aiden. But thank you, Aiden, for coming in and joining us today. Once again, it's always great to see you. That's going to do it for our show tonight. Again, folks, we try to be here every Wednesday night. In fact, we have during the course of the off season, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live as part of the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and media network. I am at Giants WFAN, as you can see. That's my Twitter handle right there at the bottom. And my hope is that we'll be able to do this again next week. I certainly hope so. The response tonight has been terrific. I'm so grateful to all of you for spending some of your Wednesday night with me. It has been an exhausting couple of days. Today, in particular, has been a marathon. It will be a marathon tomorrow, once again. And then on top of that, there'll be guys working out inside Lucas Oil Stadium on the field. And I'm also going to try to catch some of that. So, wow, the next 2 days, if today was a marathon, what are the next 2 days going to be? Holy moly. They're going to be true decathlons, is what they're going to be, which is why I had to do this with you guys tonight, because it wasn't going to happen tomorrow and it wasn't going to happen on Friday either. So, again, very grateful for everybody. Please subscribe to the program. If you liked any of what you heard tonight, and even if you didn't, that's okay. Because, again, with a lot of this stuff, there are no right or wrong answers. It's just stuff to discuss. And with all the different angles on all of these decisions that have to be made, it's really nice to try to see some of this stuff through. Hopefully, you guys are learning something from what we're telling you. I mean, that's the job, right? The job is I'm the conduit to the fans. I get to go places and talk to people that you guys can't get to. And I've been doing this now for a long, long time. I just finished my 42nd straight season of covering New York Giants football. So hopefully there's some stuff here that will make sense to you. And if it doesn't, you can ask, and I'll try to see if I can explain it. Maybe there's another angle that I haven't touched on that you want me to find out about. Or maybe you have a good point that we need to discuss and I can acknowledge and say, you know what? I appreciate the opinion. It certainly makes sense and no reason why you can't think that way. A lot of ways we can go. So since we've had so many people on the program tonight, I just wanted to give you again here at the end of our show this evening a little flavor for what we try to do here on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. And man, I tell you, I don't know how in the world I'm going to get through these next 2 days, but it's got to be done. And we expect to be back with you again next week. Again, it's not going to be Wednesday, though. Oh, I need to tell you this, folks. There's a really good chance. That I'll be doing a college basketball game next Wednesday. Not for sure, but I also do play-by-play for Division I college basketball. And there's a really good chance I'll have a basketball game, a conference tournament game to do next Wednesday night. So the odds are probably less than 50-50 we'll be back next Wednesday night. I'm not sure what we're going to do. But if you stay to my Twitter site, at GiantsWFAN, I promise you, I will get information to you as soon as I possibly can as to when we'll come back with another live program. The goal will be to do another live program next week. But again, basketball conflicts are going to create a problem potentially for me on Wednesday. And I do apologize for that. So that'll do it here from the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. I'm Paul Dottino. So glad you could join us tonight. Be well, everybody. I'm going to try to get a little rest, and then we'll do it all again the rest of the week as the NFL calendar continues to march on. So long, everybody.